Texans kick off the regular season this Sunday in Los Angeles against the Rams. Kickoff is at 3:25. Joining to talk about the upcoming season is Charlie Pallilo. He has been a staple of Houston sports radio for decades and is the master of cerebral sports talk. You can check out Charlie and his Stone Cold Stros podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Charlie, welcome to Hello Houston.
Hi, Charlie.
Appreciate the invitation. What do you know about weather?
What do you know about sports?
It's a sliding scale depending on who you ask.
Exactly. That's same with me.
And speaking of ask, if you have any questions for Charlie, give us a call, 713-440-8870. You can also text that number, 713-440-8870.
You excited for Sunday?
Well, look, if you are a fan, of course you should be optimistic. They're a two-time defending division champion, been to the playoffs 2 years in a row, won a playoff game each of those 2 years. I think generally speaking, the dynamics have shifted with all the Astros success of the last nearly decade now. But football is king if everything is equal. So the anticipation for football, one of the big things with football, whether you're a collegiate fan or a pro fan, each game is an event because it's once per week. Now, I love baseball. It's probably my first and last love. But each game, when you play 162 of them, is not going to bring the buzz, the hype.
The tailgating.
Each football game, right, the full-blown tailgating.
Yeah.
And so the Texans have the components of a team that could be tremendous. They are in the tougher
Let's talk
conference
about
of the
it.
two.
I do have one question really quickly before we jump into the Texans, because I think that you mentioned something that I find so interesting. Charlie, do you think, you mentioned collegiate football sports fan and a pro sport football sports fan. Do you think you could be an equal fan, have love for both college and pro football equally?
Sure. And I
Okay.
suppose we should add that college football is pro football now.
Yeah, that's
With
true.
all-
That's true.
It's all above.
I was
There are
just-
college players making well more than the minimum salary that NFL players make.
Yeah.
But if you have the blood is thicker than water, the tie, if you are a Longhorn or
Yes.
you are an Aggie or a Buckeye or a Wolverine or anywhere else, those are the ties that bind for life. And so college fans who root for their school or have a family affiliation, or if you happen to live in Ann Arbor, Michigan, you're probably going to root for Michigan if no member of your family ever attended the university.
Yeah.
But in a pro town, the pro teams overwhelmingly come first, unless they stink. And fortunately, we do not have a team here that stinks.
I grew up in Birmingham, and so we had Alabama and Auburn. And those were it was college.
Big
And at the
rivalries.
time, Tennessee did not have the Titans, and Mississippi did, still in Arkansas. So pro football, Atlanta Falcons are about as close as we got. So it was all about college.
Yeah.
And of course, high school's big here too.
Sure.
All right, let's talk about these Texans. They didn't do so well last year. I love C.J. Stroud. I don't know him, but I've met him, and he's a super nice guy. And I think he's a pretty good quarterback. He's got to have an offense to play well. He's got to have confidence that he's protected, that everybody's going where they're supposed to go. Do you think that things have changed? We have a new offensive coordinator. So do you think that's going to help?
The overarching question about this team really is the same as it's been the last couple of years. And really probably for the majority of this is their 24th season of play. So different regime. The offensive line. Too often in their passing game last season, the play was CJ drop back to pass and then run for your life or duck. He has Nico Collins, who is an elite wide receiver if he can just stay healthy all season. They drafted 2 wide receivers in the second and third round they think should give them more diverse weaponry. Big question with their best running back, Joe Mixon, who has a foot problem, is not going to play at least the first 4 games of the season, and it might be a lot longer than that. But the offensive line, you can have great furniture and art, but if the foundation is lousy, your home's value is only going to max out so highly.
Yeah.
Right. And, this team, forgive me, but this team has been in bad shape a few years. A few years ago with several coaching changes in a matter of just a few years. And among football fans, that's been kind of tough. And we've been looking at our leadership. And when we're looking at the hiring of D'Amico Ryans, do you think that has changed the trajectory of this team?
No question, because by the end of the Bill O'Brien reign of error, any change for the sake of change would have been welcomed here. And in D'Amico's first 2 seasons, they've gone 10-7, won the AFC South each year. But I would note that being the tallest Lilliputian does not make you a giant. The AFC South has been lousy the last couple of years. The Tennessee Titans, the Indianapolis Colts, the Jacksonville Jaguars. So the bar has been low for the Texans to be the best among their 4 teams in their division and get to the playoffs. They've had a home playoff game that they've won, then have had to go on the road and not come close to winning either of those 2 games. Somewhat competitive in Kansas City last season, but there was no question the Chiefs were a much superior team. So do the Texans have a step to elevate to true contention status? They're in the AFC, where there is no doubt going into the season, the Buffalo Bills, the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Baltimore Ravens are flat out better than the Texans. Have been, are, and until the Texans demonstrate otherwise, will be. So can they shatter that glass ceiling, if you will?
Yeah. Well, you know, I was just talking to Karen Winston in our last segment, and she gave kudos to the ownership. The McNairs have really sort of come forth and are more visible. They're really watching out for the guys' mental health. They've got a lot going on there. Do you think that's helping with public perception that we're hanging in with those Texans because we like the owners, or no play?
There's an expression that winning is the best deodorant. And so you can be philanthropic and charitable and kiss babies and hug little old ladies.
Yeah.
If you go 6-11, you're a bum. Get new ownership. Fire the coach. Trade this player. Release that player. But they've regained credibility in their overall operation. And Cal McNair, there's going to be a variety of opinion, which pretty much is the case about any public figure.
Right.
But he is an affable guy and has been more front-facing the last 2 years. Not coincidentally, because they have been winning more. But it can grow stale. Being pretty good for a lot of fans grows kind of stale, who can forget that being pretty good, while not being great, and the goal, especially in a city, you know, there are only 4 franchises that have never been to a Super Bowl. The Texans are the most recent to enter the league in 2002. It's not like they're the Detroit Lions, who've been here since there have been Super Bowls, and they're 0 for 59. But the Texans also have not reached an AFC championship game. They're the only AFC franchise, other than this version, the second version of the Cleveland Browns, to not get that far. So for some fans, what have you done for me lately? If you're not getting better, you're getting worse. But 10-7, winning one playoff game and losing the second one, that's not like going 3-13-1 or 4-13 as they strung together 3 seasons where football nearly died professionally in this city.
Okay, Charlie, but now we're going to look at the roster, and the Texans have a core of good young players anchored by C.J. Stroud, Will Anderson Jr., and guys like receiver Nico Collins and cornerback Derek Stingley. I sound really good, don't I?
I know, they've got great names.
Yes. Is the future looking pretty good for this team right now?
Not sure why you need me here, the way you're knocking them off there. The defense has a chance.
You're buttering me up.
The defense has a chance to be truly great, as in right at the top of the NFL great. Will Anderson, young player, blossoming superstar. Stingley, probably one of the 2 or 3 best cornerbacks, cover guys in the NFL. And the third superstar level player who was a free agent addition before last season, Danielle Hunter, who's 30 years old, still should be in his peak prime. The Texans extended his contract for the 2026 season. So those are 3 players who probably rate among the top 15 to 20 defensive players in the entire NFL. The defense, barring calamitous injuries, is going to be really good. It's about the offense, and we circle back to that offensive line. Right. C.J. Stroud, you know, maybe a little bit had the yips. If you're always, that little mental clock, 1,000, 2, I better get rid of the ball, or I better get out of here. But C.J.'s play also fell off after an historically magnificent rookie season. He was not as good in season 2. Well, life and progress in all walks of life, unless you're really, really fortunate. It's not linear. You're not just going to get better, and then win the Super Bowl or wherever your maximum point of success is. So if he had to take a step back to now take a further step forward, that's in play for the Texans. It's a quarterback league. You know, it's not as if you have a great quarterback. It guarantees your team greatness, but without a great quarterback, you have no chance at greatness. And C.J. Stroud gives them that opportunity, but he is not entering the season in the first cast of quarterbacks. Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson. If at the end of the season we can fairly say, hey, C.J. Stroud belongs sitting at the head table with those guys, it will mean the Texans have had an outstanding season.
Charlie, you said max of success would be like a Super Bowl. What do you think the max of success is going to be for the Texans this season?
Where's my magic 8 ball? They really, I think, need to somehow take advantage of playing 6 division games in a soft division. Load up on those. They have 9 home games, only 8 road games. So there are a couple things about their schedule. They have to finish better than 10-7. There's nothing about this team that suggests it can go on the road in January and win 2 playoff games consecutively in Buffalo, Baltimore, Kansas City, where you're dealing with Patrick Mahomes and Taylor Swift. So if they can get to where they would have 2 home playoff games, which if you have the second best record in the league, would secure you that, then if you only have to win 1 road game, and oh my goodness, you're in the Super Bowl, that would greatly enhance their chances. I think overall, they project still as good, not great, but that's why you go out and play the schedule and see if you can outperform the expectations of smart Alex like me.
You talked about the home games. How's home doing? Was it the stadium, NRG, asking for a bunch of money to fix things up?
Yeah.
What happened
Look,
with that?
it laid low. If they make a run to the Super Bowl, I bet you we'll hear a lot more about that. It's still a wonderful facility. You're always going to look for upgrades, and they all look around and see, well, here's a newer stadium, or they just put $400 million in refurbishments into that stadium. So it needs a facelift, perhaps. I don't think reconstructive surgery. And, this is way above all our pay grades and negotiation points. But that they absolutely will need a new facility within the next 5 years, I don't buy that. But it is now a quarter century old, and you look around the NFL and the public-private partnership of tax dollars that go in, it happens everywhere. They do it because they can, but I don't think there's a stalking horse other market if it got ugly, which is how the Oilers wound up moving to Tennessee. Look, the Texans are printing money. The NFL at large is printing money. They're ultimately going to have zero interest in vacating the 4th and in another 15 years, 3rd largest city in the country to move to Portland, Oregon, or some other much smaller market just because they'll build you a stadium, but your overall revenue potential is much, much smaller.
You're listening to Hello Houston. We are speaking with Charlie Pallilo, the master of cerebral sports talk. You can join the conversation at 713-440-8870.
Yeah, so you brought up the Oilers. They left a long time ago. Do you think we've healed from that? Have you healed from that?
Yeah, well, as an impartial media observer, I've never let myself live and die with the team results. I always want the team to be good and fun to follow and talk about, getting to lead a life where it's a mall. I live in the toy store. But if they have a bad season, I'm not going to let it ruin my winter.
Right.
There are some of the older diehards who are still Titans fans, and hey, all power to them if that's where your roots are. So when they move to Tennessee, I'm going to stick with my team. The kerfuffle over the use of the Titans wearing the Columbia blue uniforms against the Texans last year, that was a clear jab and twist. If you want to call it petty, so be it.
Below the belt.
But
felt a little below the belt.
It was petty. It was petty.
Yeah.
But, it is sports, and it's a huge deal and all kinds of jobs and a multi-billion-dollar conglomerate. But it's not about peace in the Middle East or Ukraine, Russia, where people should get so distraught or angry over team results or any of the ancillary elements that it's truly negatively impacting your life.
Okay, so there's a big question mark at running back heading into the season with Joe Mixon's health a bit of a mystery right now. Yeah. Should fans be nervous about the running game at all?
Yes. Mixon was excellent last season when healthy. As we discussed earlier, he'll miss a minimum of the first 4 games of the season. They signed a veteran away from the Cleveland Browns named Nick Chubb, who's about 30 years old, which in NFL age for a running back is getting a little gray in the beard.
Ouch, Charlie.
He's also had a couple of calamitous injuries, to use calamitous twice. So they can't envision him as a heavy-duty back. They have Dameon Pierce, who's been around here going into his 4th season now. They drafted in the 4th round a pass-catching threat named Woody Marks. They would miss Mixon, but he was not a superstar running back. And one more time, it's about the offensive line. In the run game, in pass protection, but especially if the running game declines because of no Joe Mixon and you're going to have to throw the ball more, Well, you're going to have to protect C.J. Stroud, who, by the way, is going to be coming up for a contract extension after the season, probably in the $60 million per season range.
Wow. He better win.
Yeah.
We expect a lot out of that for $60 million. We did have Cosme Garcia on YouTube say, I will not support a bond for a new stadium. The Texans can move to Dallas, LOL.
That's right. And we also have another
Yeah, what do you think
question.
about the Astros, Charlie? We've got about a minute left here.
They're scuffling, but the Seattle Mariners and Texas Rangers, the teams trying to chase them down, not so good themselves. The Astros will have to fold if they're to not make it to the playoffs. They are going on a 10-game road trip now. They've been on the road this season. They should hold on and at least get into the postseason. And while this team is nowhere near as good, certainly as the two World Series winning teams, but everything from 2017 forward, basically, if you get into the postseason, you're shooting dice, where they're best of 3, best of 5, best of 7 series, where teams that are truly inferior to the teams that they're facing in the short, the house always wins in the Las Vegas casinos over the long run, but someone can sit down at the table and for an hour make huge money. But if you play for weeks on end, the house is going to win. Over 162 games, the best teams are going to have the best records. Very rarely in this wild card era with expanded playoffs, 8 times actually in 30 years, has the team that's had the best record for the entire season wound up winning the World Series. Get in the tournament. Take your chances.
All right, here's the big question. Is Houston a baseball town or a football town, Charlie?
Who's winning?
Thank
The Astros have raised the baseball bar, but if they're both great, heaven forbid we ever need to have this referendum.
Okay.
If we had to vote that only one team can still exist, if the Texans were to equal the Astros' success, I think the Texans would win. And let's just throw in the Rockets have a chance to be a very interesting and good team this coming NBA season.
Thank you, Charlie Pallilo. We're definitely going to have you back. Thank you for joining us today on Hello Houston.
Appreciate being here.